My prayer to you is that even if you expel me, that you still act to address the crisis of mass shootings. Because if I'm expelled from here, I'll be back out there with the people every week demanding that you act. If you expel me, I'll continue to show up because this issue is too important. I talked to too many students and mothers in tears this week who said, thank you for doing something, colleagues. The world is watching.
We are back with more on the attack on democracy happening right before our eyes today in Tennessee. Joining me now is Reverend Mark Thompson, civil rights and human rights activist and host of the Make It Plain podcast, and Brittany Packnett Cunningham, MSNBC political analyst and host of the Undistracted podcast. Thank you, friends, for being here. And Mark, I do want to start with you. You were in that chamber. Give us a sense of the atmosphere inside and out today.
It's been incredible. First of all, thanks for having me, Joy. Good to see you, Brittany. It's, as you saw in the background when we just heard from my brother Justin, he was just upstairs from me. I came down so I could hear. I'm one level below, but thunderous noise, and it's still ongoing, and it's going to continue to go on. People are outside in the streets. This has been an incredible day. It's really been quite a day, and I know Gloria Johnson survived. We're thankful for that. We'll see what happens with Justin Pearson. But for these Republicans in Tennessee to do this, and for them to be so evangelical and as Bible-thumping as they are, to not realize the irony in trying to expel 3 today on the eve of the day tomorrow when 3 were crucified, simply for standing up for what is right and trying to end gun violence in this country. Very, very proud of Justin. He's a generation behind me, but we came up in the same church, Clark Memorial United Methodist, with James Lawson, taught John Lewis and Diane Nash and Bernard Lafayette and Marion Barry, nonviolence for the Nashville Sit-In movement. So Justin is really following in the footsteps of those great people, and I couldn't be prouder of my young brother.
And, you know, Brittany, one of the things that I definitely noted was a generational difference, right? In this state, that was the state where the Klan was founded. It was the also place where the Nashville student movement, as Mark was talking about, was founded. There's a lot of history here. Obviously, Memphis, Tennessee has its own dark history in the history of the civil rights movement. But I think about that, and I think about the Nashville student movement in particular. There were members, there are other Black members in that body, but they're a generation older than beyond Mark Thompson, right? They are a generation older. And there was a lot of talk about grace. Like, we know the young people got a little bit excited. We know that they had different methods that were a little bit loud, but let's have grace for them. That argument of grace struck me as a very odd way to talk about the stripping of democracy from 200,000 constituents. And I wonder, you as a young activist, how that struck you, that strange sort of generational difference between Justin Jones' fire and this older guard sort of call for grace.
Well, you know, I understand a bit of the calculus, right? As Reverend Mark was just talking about, my dear friend was just saying, there's an understanding that we are in Holy Week, even though we are watching something deeply unholy happen. There's an understanding that that kind of Bible Belt, Bible thumping mentality may be an opportunity to make an appeal on grace, an appeal on so-called forgiveness. But personally, I don't feel that there's any forgiveness necessary because nothing wrong was done. The only wrong done was the continued inaction and distraction that the Tennessee GOP has been pursuing during this hearing before now and what they'll continue to do after now. Look, there is a clear call from young people and older people all across this nation who recognize that every single place in this country should be safe, especially the places where we send our children to learn. Joy, you know, I have a 15-month-old, and I'm so deeply concerned every day for the future and the present that I'm sending him into, worried every day about when he should start school, when he should start daycare, because I never know when I'm going to pick up the phone or open my email and get that message that there is an active shooter on his campus. So really the question that I have and that I heard others in that chamber ask, that I heard the Tennessee 3 ask is, why are you not outraged? Why is your concern decorum instead of the life of innocent children? Why is your outrage outrage not palpable? Why were you not here in the well with us? We should all be outraged that there's a clear solution to diminish gun violence and mass shootings in this country by banning assault weapons. And not only does the GOP across the country refuse to do that, they stand in active way of that happening and take it so far as to silence the voices of the constituents and the representatives who want to see that happen. So quite frankly, yes, there can be a gap, and I understand the calculus of asking for that grace, but really we should be embarrassing the folks who are not outraged by this, because it is absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, let me play really quickly. This is Gloria Johnson, because there was a difference between the way that at least the first two of these representatives were treated. Here is Gloria Johnson explaining in her own words why she thinks she survived when her colleague Justin Jones did not.
Why do you feel like there was a difference in the outcome between you and your colleague?
I will answer your question. It might have to do with the color of our skin.
Let me bring in NBC's Priscilla Thompson, our heroic reporter who did help to make sure that we got Justin Jones earlier. And I want to thank you for that. I'm going to just bring you in here. I don't know if you were able to talk to any of the Republican members and if they had some explanation as to why they decided to spare Gloria Johnson, the only white member of the Tennessee Three, and expel expeditiously Justin Jones, while not even finishing full debate. They actually cut off debate in order to get to it.
Yeah, we have not been able to speak to any of the Republican lawmakers yet. They're expected to speak after all of this wraps up today. And that's certainly going to be one of the questions that we are going to be asking. I will tell you that people in this crowd here are echoing the feeling that Representative Johnson shared, which is, was this something that happened because of race? And of course, Republicans here have said that that is not the case, that this is about decorum. But it does pose the question when you have one black man that has been expelled and one non-black woman, white woman that has not been expelled. And you heard Representative Jones in there calling this a political lynching. He accused Republicans of trying to treat him like an uppity Negro, someone who needed to be put in his place. And so those questions are certainly swirling here as we wait to see what the fate of Representative Pearson will ultimately be. But that is certainly not lost upon people here as these protesters continue to stay here and see how all of this is going to play out. They have been here since early this morning, chanting and making sure that their voices are heard, even from outside of the chamber, as they seek to stand in solidarity with these lawmakers. Joy?
Yeah, thank you, Priscilla Thompson. Thank you. Appreciate it. Wave your hands. If anything happens that you think we need to know about, we definitely will bring you back. Let me go back to Mark and Brittany. Let me play Justin Pearson, the other Justin. We haven't heard him because we've been on air, but he's speaking now. But let me play a clip of what he's had to say. Justin Pearson.
There's been a refrain and a song going around in this movement. Power to the people, power to the people, power to the people. But there is something that tells me it is not the rules being broken. It was what we were advocating for that folks have gotten very upset about, that we were advocating for people who have been murdered in our communities.
Mark Thompson, I feel, I'm working on a Medgar Evers project right now, and I feel like, 1963 was such a year of pain and tragedy in the civil rights movement. It was the year that Medgar Evers was assassinated, but his offense, even according to the NAACP he worked for at the national level, was that he wanted to empower the young people, that he wanted to side with them when they wanted to do sit-ins and they wanted to do a Birmingham-style movement, the way that they saw SNCC and other movements that growing up, that he wanted to support that. And there was this sense that the young people were out of control. The young people didn't want to patiently wait and allow segregation to continue. They wanted it over now. They wanted freedom now. And this was disruptive. It feels like Tennessee has decided to go back there. Like they just rather go ahead and be in 1963 again. Because what I saw in that body was a throwback in the same way they're doing in Florida, to try to throw back to an era when young black folks had no power. But they seem, in my mind, to have empowered those Tennessee Three more than they disempowered them.
I would agree with you, but even on the generational piece and just hearing my brother Justin Pearson sing, I mean, he's invoking some of our history. So he gets the generational aspect and does not shun our past, our ancestry. But what's interesting, when you talk about 60 years ago, many of the young people that the NAACP was angry at Megger about obviously look like the three of us. But upstairs in this rotunda, the majority of young people, it's a majority of young people, and the majority of those young people are in fact white. And so for Priscilla to acknowledge that this discussion about race and how Gloria Johnson got a pass is even permeating among them is significant. This is a bigger movement. This is black and white and brown and red, every group of people, because people are sick of us losing our young people, losing our old people to this gun violence. The governor of this state signed the open carry law at the Beretta plant, at the Beretta headquarters here in Tennessee. That's appalling. So they embrace this type of gun violence. They don't want to do anything about it. And so they're going to punish those who are going to stand against it.
Yeah, as I said earlier on Nicole's show, they just want everyone, these young folks, to just shut up and die and just accept that you can meet death at school, at the Walmart, at church. You're just going to have to shut up and accept that you may die at any moment because we love these guns more than we love you. Brittany Packnett-Cunningham, I know that you also are a former teacher. And so I would love for you to just talk in this moment about this willingness, this sort of open willingness, as Mark was just saying, of these lawmakers to ignore the tragedy that just happened. You know, I don't even know that the burials have taken place for these 6 people who died in an elementary school. And this body is so eager to get about the business of expelling people, expanding gun ownership, banning drag shows, as if there is nothing they can do to keep their own constituents alive. And if you try to keep them alive, you got to go.
I mean, Joy, you just hit the nail on the head, right? That this talk of decorum was an intentional and purposeful distraction from Evelyn and Mike and William and Catherine and Cynthia and Hallie, the 6 people who were just massacred in their state. 6 people who represent families and neighborhoods and communities that are supposed to be represented with love and care by those who sit in that chamber. But instead, they use decorum as a distraction, not just because they don't want to do anything about it or they can't do anything about it, but because the money that lines their pockets does not allow them to do anything about it. When you are bought and sold by the NRA, you're not particularly going to put yourself in a position that would stop these kind of massacres. And frankly, this is not the first kind of massacre we've seen of children. I remember thinking after Sandy Hook that if this did not transform gun control across this country, then we are not going to turn back now, unfortunately. That if the massacre of those children was not enough, then the massacre of any children would not be enough. And as a former teacher, I remember teaching my 3rd graders in Washington, D.C. about Dr. King, about the importance of justice, about the importance of doing what Representative Pearson talked about, ensuring that the movement for justice doesn't die because you can't kill the heart for justice. I also remember teaching them what Dr. King said about being aware rather of those who are more committed to order than they are to justice. That's exactly what we've seen in this chamber today. And that commitment to order is a shield to make sure that their pockets stay lined and that their real constituents, the NRA and the gun lobby, stay happy with them.
Amen. And then, Mark, and then they will go to church on Easter Sunday and pretend to be holy, knowing in their hearts that they have lost control of their children. Because to your point that you made, Mark, those little woke people outside of there are young, they are white. And that is the reason they don't want history taught in our schools, because they have lost control of their children because their children are smart enough to want to live. Your thoughts? I'm going to give you the last word, Reverend, because it's almost Easter.
Amen. Well, good to see you as always. We're just going to have to continue this fight. Hopefully Justin will survive this vote. Honestly, I doubt it, also because of the color of his skin. But it is an utter contradiction to want to maintain decorum over wanting to prevent death. And that's exactly what these individuals are doing. And you're right, not only Sunday will they go to church, tomorrow we'll mourn the crucifixion of Christ. But here again, 3 people today tried and one of them convicted. We'll see about the other. But for literally doing nothing wrong, but for preaching the gospel of peace and nonviolence and trying.
I think we have lost Mark. Yes, we have lost him, but I will just close on his behalf by saying it is apostasy. It is apostasy to call yourself a Christian and claim that you believe in God and you believe in Jesus when what you believe in is death. What you believe in is distributing as much death as possible to as many people as possible, even your own children, because you don't love them like you love firearms. You don't love them like you love the NRA. Don't go to church on Sunday and put, your money in the basket, hoping that it will grow and as a seed and multiply, because literally all you are multiplying, Republican Party, is death. And eventually you're also going to multiply your own destruction, because those young people are going to figure out one day that they can vote you out. They're going to vote you out. Your own children are going to vote you out. Watch it happen. Watch God work. Reverend Mark Thompson, Brittany Packnett-Cunningham, thank you. We'll be keeping an eye on the Tennessee legislature as we await the vote to expel Representative Justin Pearson. We will bring that to you. If it happens in our hour, we'll go right back to it.